Left of the box. It's not just Trudeau that's trying to build bridges between our two nations. Nope, 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 nope. Again, we have conservative premiers here in Canada, one of them being Doug Ford here in Ontario. And again, super happy Donald Trump got into power. But now we're kind of like, this numbness I feel in my face is the leopard chewing. Doug Ford, who I constantly now kind of get the names mixed up when I'm talking about both of them, Donald Trump and Doug Ford. He's feeling it. And recently he spent like $100 million on Starlink. He's planning on spending like $100 billion on a highway under a highway. All of this money that he's just wasting, $1 billion to get liquor into stores a year earlier than previously planned. You know, moving the Ontario Science Centre to a mall. We'll touch on that as well. All of this stuff. And now that Doug Ford is feeling this pressure from, you know, what would happen to Ontario should these tariffs go through and the trade relations we have with, you know, the United States, because we're like the number 5th trading partner, Ontario alone, with the United States or something like that. Well, he decided to spend tens of millions of dollars to put an ad on American TV programs. From Global News, trusted partner to your north, Ontario set to roll out major U.S. commercial. With Donald Trump's threat of tariffs on all Canadian goods hanging over, the Ford government is spending tens of millions of dollars on a nude advertising campaign in the United States to promote Ontario's role as a key trading partner. Yes, that's the best way to communicate with the future American president is by running ads on Fox News. Spending tens of millions of taxpayer money to roll them ads in hopes that Donald Trump will pay attention to him. A new commercial targeting Americans is set to launch Monday across the U.S. with plans to reach more than 100 million viewers through staples like Monday Night Football, Fox News, and CNN. In the States, the 100 million viewers who are going to see this commercial and even more on Monday Night Football, you are really going to understand that it's Ontario, it's Canada, who is a really valued trading partner. Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade Vic Fidelity said in an interview on Focus Ontario. It's really important just to remind them, subtly remind them through advertisements on their news programs and football. You put the ad through the football. We're a trusted partner to your north, and we've always been there for you, and we'll be there for you tomorrow. Previewing the commercial earlier this week, Premier Ford said the new advertising campaign is meant to send a stronger together message to an all-American jurisdictions, highlighting Canada's involvement in the mission in Afghanistan between 2011 and 2014, supporting American troops in the aftermath of September 11th terrorist attacks in New York City. It's like, look, leopards, you shouldn't be eating my face. Like, look at all these nice things we did for you. There's other people out there you could be eating the faces of. You know, I sent cookies. I was nice. You shouldn't be eating our face. Yes, we like you and all, but really, our face? Come on. Look at all these nice things we've done for you. Every conflict we've had, we stand shoulder to shoulder, putting Canada's soldiers' lives at risk, Ford said, because that's what you do when a family member is in a fight around the world. You stand beside them. You support them. Doug has referred to the United States before as being family. Family. That's what you do. Family members in a fight around the world. You stand beside them. You support them. It's hard for me to read anything like this and not think about what's happening in Gaza. I'm just saying. And how they're standing beside Israel. It really does. It's constantly there in the back of your head all the time, what's happening over there, the atrocities and stuff, and just how friendly this country is to all that sort of, you know, horrific events. But that's what families do together. They commit genocide. The commercial, which was exclusively first played on Focus Ontario, will roll out in Washington, D.C. in December. Then between January and March, it will target key states, including along the northern border where jobs are especially reliant on the Ontario-U.S. relationship. I was going to show the ad, but there's a lot of music in the background, and I don't know if it's going to hit me up for, copyright issues and stuff. And it's also very bland. It's not that interesting, and I'm sure other people will break it down far more. I think it's important that you be the eyes of the president-elect. You be in the eyes of the president-elect, whether it's Fox or, quite frankly, CNN, to make sure we cover both sides of the aisle. You ain't covering both sides of the aisle with Fox and CNN these days. Asked if Premier Ford would appear on Fox News, the trade minister said, "We're not going to exclude anything." Okay, so recently, been all over the news, American and Canadian news, that Donald Trump wants to impose a 25% tariff on all things coming in from Mexico and Canada, and an additional 25% on all things coming in from China. So I guess the 25% plus 10%, so 35%. Because the number one thing, the first thing Donald Trump wants to do when he becomes president again is to piss off all the biggest trading partners, because that's how unity works. That's how the economy works. He wants to do that. And so Justin Trudeau rightfully was alarmed by this, which led him to go to Mar-a-Lago, which led Donald Trump to make those little jokes about Canada becoming the 51st state. Well, he wasn't the only one to want to start building bridges with the United States. There's also Doug Ford. He didn't go down. I think he was a little bit offended he wasn't invited, but he didn't go down to Mar-a-Lago. But he recently started a $100 million campaign to put ads in the United States. I covered that in my last live stream to start combating this idea of a tariff, to start, basically it's his way of saying, hey, right-wing Americans, I'm one of you. You see, he's trying to paint spots on his face to look like a leopard. But the thing is that American leopards and Canadian leopards are two different breeds of leopards. And they don't, they might get along to some extent, but when there's no other things to eat, when all the other faces are eaten, they'll start looking at each other. But Doug Ford is desperately trying to paint the spots on him to make himself look as much like an American leopard as possible. And so what does he do? He goes on Fox News and grovels like a little baby. And then he also tries to throw in his jokes as well. And all of that sort of stuff. It's just embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And what was really funny about this is he finally gets his moment on Spotlight on Fox News. And it's not even a video call. It's just a phone call. And they don't even show a picture of him when he calls in. There's some shade there. It's like, yeah, you think you're going to be a leopard we accept? We're not even going to show you the respect of having your picture up on screen while you're talking on the phone.
President-elect, but that didn't stop, Canada's Prime Minister, Trudeau, to stop and pay a visit to Mar-a-Lago to stop something he says will be devastating to his country. He says at the same time to Canada and the United States mutually, and that is tariffs that the president plans when he reassumes office.
Still, again, just absolute legend, this kid in the background that was making a face with this very official photo that is now in all the documents.
Doug Ford is the Ontario Canada Premier. What he makes of all of this, Premier, very good to have you joining us on the phone. I know we had some video issues with you, but what do you make of this and where this relationship stands?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Neil. We've always had an incredible relationship with Canada and the U.S., and we want to continue that. We want to make sure that we build a Can-Am fortress, per se, if you want to call it that. And the real focus should be on China. It should be on Mexico. China bringing in cheap products through Mexico, slapping stickers that they made in Mexico and shipping it up through America into Ontario and Canada.
So he already, previously he was on record kind of being offended that Donald Trump would put Canada in the same category as Mexico and China. And here he is doing it again, basically saying, Oh yeah, I'm totally on board. Those Mexicans and the Chinese, they're the bad guys, and we're totally with you on destroying them. Like, they're the problem. We're not the problem. They're the problem. And it is very much schoolyard bully tactics here. It's like, no, no, no. Let's bully these other nations together. I'm just as much as a bully as you are. So let's take these other two nations, totally blame them for everything. But I'm on board with you guys. It's Mexico and China that are the problem. And I'm totally going to work with the United States against them.
And costing Americans and Canadians jobs. That's what we should focus on. We're so much stronger together.
Do you think it was a mistake for the Prime Minister to visit Donald Trump?
No, I don't think it's a mistake at all. Right now, it's Team Canada, and
Yeah.
I'm glad that the Prime Minister went down there, the first leader of the G7, to come and visit President-elect Trump.
And that's actually what Pierre Poilievre should have done but didn't do, was actually get behind Trudeau. I don't agree with what Trudeau did. I agree with what Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, did. I like her stance much better than Canada's stance. But it is important that when these international tiffs come up, that there is at least a unified front. And of course, Pierre Poilievre doesn't want to have that because he doesn't want to agree with Justin Trudeau on anything. He's contrarian. Like, just, it doesn't matter if it would benefit. It doesn't matter if it's a policy like the tax cut that's coming up, the GST holiday that Pierre Poilievre wanted to put through. But because Justin Trudeau is putting it through, then it's wrong. But this is one of the rare instances where Doug Ford is like, no, I agree with the federal government. He also did that at the beginning of COVID. He didn't stick with it very long, but at least at the beginning of COVID, he was in line with it. And so this is one of the rare instances. But I think it's also because it's building bridges with Donald Trump. It's showing fealty to Donald Trump that Doug Ford is all on board with. Like, Canada just needs to, kiss the boot of Donald Trump, or as the Majority Report would say, kiss the onion ring.
A lot of people say there's a big difference between your country and China, and that they're kind of lumped in the same tariff bucket. What do you think?
Well, I think it's unfortunate considering Canada does $1.3 trillion of trade, more than China, Japan, UK, and France combined. Ontario alone does $500 billion of two-way trade. And I might add, it's equally split down the center. And we're a big auto province here. And it's...
Again, I just find it funny that here's Doug Ford talking, and they're just showing pictures of, like, Justin Trudeau. It's like, you didn't have one stock image of Doug Ford you could have put up? Not even one? How disrespectful, actually. Like, that is totally disrespectful. Be talking to, like, the leader. Like, imagine them talking to, like, any sort of Canadian news network, talking to, I guess it's a governor of the United States or something like that, and then just showing pictures of Biden. Not even showing a picture of the governor they're talking to.
Parts can go back and forth across the border up to 8 times, so the supply chain is very connected.
Donald Trump was making a joke with Trudeau in which he said, you could always become a state and those problems go away. But what did you make of that?
Well, the president has a good sense of humor. And, it's a funny comment. I guess he's still upset that, in 1812 we burnt down your White House, and he's holding a grudge after 212 years. But I understand his...
I'm sorry, but do you seriously think Donald Trump knows that happened? And it wasn't technically Canada that burned down the White House, because Canada wasn't quite a nation yet. It was the British Empire that did it. But do you think Donald Trump knows that much history to know that at one point when these nations were first being founded and we were warring with each other, that the White House got burned down? He doesn't know that. I understand it's a joke, but still. He doesn't know that. And actually, I'd prefer it if he doesn't know that. I'd feel a little bit more comfortable if he didn't learn that little tidbit of history.
You know, he's a funny guy. So.
You know, but I am curious for whatever people's views on this subject and the individual personalities. The president-elect says that tariffs are the sweetest word to him. They're very effective. They can be used as a cudgel to get what you want out of those who you feel are taking advantage of you. But you can also go too far with these things, and other countries reciprocate with tariffs of their own, and it builds on itself. Do you think that this could really explode into a global recession if it gets out of hand?
Well, I hope not, Neil, because you can't compare Canada with any other country in the entire world when it comes to the U.S. We're part of the family, per se. We're the number one trading partner, Ontario alone, to 17 states. We're number 2 to 11 others. 9 million Americans wake up every single morning to produce products that get shipped up to our province, Ontario. And I think it's a great partnership. It's a great friendship that's gone on for many generations, and we want to keep it that way. We're so much stronger when we stick together. I heard the other day, Neil, I think it was yesterday, China came out and talked about the critical minerals. How they're going to cut the U.S. off. Well, who has the critical minerals? Ontario has the critical minerals, and I don't want to give them to anyone, but I'll tell you one thing, I want to give them to the U.S. to support them. They need our energy, the Americans. We ship 4.3 million barrels every single day down to the U.S. Ontario sends energy, electricity down to New York State, down to Michigan to keep your factories going, keeping the lights on in New York. That's what we have to offer and much more. So we look forward to a mutually rewarding relationship moving forward.
Finally gets his moment on Fox News, and they didn't even show a picture of him. Instead, they showed the Trump dance. Absolute embarrassment. Like, our leaders are just so embarrassing. So embarrassing. But as the Wild West is like, really? The White House joke? Really? Yeah, it's old. It's an old joke.